Hello everybody, this is the new project Sanguinius, and I know some of you were waiting for that moment because you want to know how to paint gold NMM in a tiny miniatures like this Space Marine. So this is a Primarch Sanguinius from the Blood Angels, and I thought that this model will be really interesting for you, so for that reason I brought for Patreon. So what do you have to know about that model? So it's a 28mm, but that means that you have to understand that 28mm means that a normal human, the size, it's like a 1.7 meters. So a Space Marine should be bigger, like I think it's 2.2 meters. So in a Primarch should be something bigger. This is like a huge human, like a superhuman. So that model, in case it's like 50mm. I don't know if for players will think that the Primarch should be bigger than this size. I don't know, but I think to play it's a nice size to play. So this model is a bit bigger. So I would like to say, because if you are waiting for something a bit smaller, it's like 50 or 55mm, that model, okay? Then, if you don't know how to paint edge highlighting, that project is for you, because you have to paint a lot of edge highlighting. So you will enjoy painting every edge on that model. So it will be really fun. So what do you have to know when you want to start that model? I've decided to use my airbrush to paint every base coat. How you have to enjoy and how you have to work with that. So first, enjoy always with airbrush, because it's a really interesting tool. You can use capibases at the beginning as always, but I think with that tiny detail, because we have to paint a lot of edges to represent everything, every tiny detail, because it's full detail that model. I think if we start with airbrush, we can get an easy sketch really fast. So for that reason, everything that you will see, like this kind of yellow, for me, now on the video, for sure, it's the light. For sure, but at the end, once time I've painted everything with the airbrush, remember that everything that I painted will be my first shadow. That means that where you can see the yellow color, I'm going to use it as the shadow for that area. So the light at the end, the highlighting, will be something close to white or maybe pure white. For that reason, I'm using that color. Then in the places where I'm using this kind of orange, because I would like to add more mid-tones and I think new colors on that armor to have a better sketch to start to paint, I'm going to use that kind of color as a shadow too. And then I'm going to use red and then violet and maybe black. So the idea when you want to start with airbrush, in my opinion, in a model like this one, should be starting with the highlighting. But this highlighting, the highest color, the most lightest color ever for your model will be a shadow too. So you have to keep that on your mind, because it's true that everybody understands that, hey, okay, I've painted the light, so the light is done, perfect. I'm going to paint the mid-tones, boom, I've painted them. Okay, and now it's time to use the shadows, perfect. So just with 3 colors we have done our model. That is wrong. So we have to paint everything, in that case, as a shadow. So that yellow and that orange, both are shadows for me. Maybe I want to repaint 100%, but for sure I'm going to paint a lot of percent of each kind of this color. So you will see that yellow only on the dark linings or maybe some nuances around the highlighting. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind, because it's really interesting. Understand that everything that I'm going to paint with these lighter colors than the next one, it's the shadow too, because it's very common. Understand that this is just the light. So once time I've painted the light, now it's time to use glazing and my model is done. No, not with me. So I have to explain you the different way, and I have to give you different ways to paint. And in this one, to paint gold NMM, I think will be really fun painted in that way. So first, if you see, I'm using yellow and orange. Why? Because I would like to warm the light. So I would like to have something warmer. Then, as you can see, I'm using cold red to add different shadows with more depth. And then I'm going to use violet or black. It's depends on what do you want to represent about your taste. Because remember, this is gold. So what do you have in your mind about that color? Maybe in your mind should be something desaturated, more desaturated than mine. But it's true that always, that I said in all my tutorials, it's paint with saturation, it's harder than paint with desaturation. So paint with grays and black and browns, it's really easy. So it's just everything with a low color, just that. So it's really easy. But control the saturation, it's really, really tough. So at the beginning, I recommend you start with the saturation. Then, if you don't like it, it's really easy. Change and move to a desaturated colors. It's just play with the glazing that we will use at the end with the complementary colors, for example, or use a desaturated colors to spray over everything. For example, different kind of browns, something like that. But if you see, I'm using red, this kind of cold red. And if you see on my model, because I have orange or yellow, will look like a different red or a brown sometimes. So for that reason, I like to play at the beginning with more saturation, because lose that tonalities, it's really easy. So the difficult part is play, paint, and keep them with that saturation. It's really tough. Okay, so about the dilution, how you have to start with the dilution with airbrush. For sure, it's not like we use when we use glazing at the end of our projects. In that case, it's better paint with 4-5 layers, no more, but never with one layer. Because if you want to cover everything with your airbrush with one layer, maybe you will have to clean your airbrush as sooner as you think, because it will look like concrete inside of your airbrush and you will have to clean it. So for that reason, remember, you have to thin your colors, all of them. How much you thin them, much time you need to layering. But it's true that more time will be clean your airbrush. So you will work more time with your airbrush without clean it, okay? So it's like a mix. You have to play with a thin dilution and not too thin, because you don't want to use dirty water, okay? So just using dirty water, it's when you want to use glazing at everything. That I told you that you have to paint 20 layers, it's perfect. 30 layers, perfect too. But in that case, with 4 or 5 will be perfect to use as a base coat. And remember, you have to repaint everything, not like a dirty water, that the water for the surface extension move to the dark linings and looks like in the midtones a bit weird. So be careful with that. Should be completely uniform, as you can see on the video, okay? Then, what happened about that color, this violet? For example, you can use brown, and you can use your favorite brown. Everyone knows which one is your favorite brown. It's Rhino's Hide from Games Workshop. Everybody knows that. So if that color is your favorite and you think that a gold color should have Rhino's Hide, remember that they explain you how to mix colors to represent that color. It's really easy. It's just like a desaturated red, like a red with a bit of brown inside. So it's like a Calgary brown, for example. Or Calgary red. It's a lot of red, but a bit desaturated. Plus black. This is Rhino's Hide, just that. So if you want to increase the saturation, you can use, for example, a bit of violet inside of that mix. You are playing with brown, that you like it, plus a bit of violet. What gives you that violet? Will give you something cold in your color. So you will get better contrast between the temperatures. You will have the yellow and orange as a warm colors. Remember, both are shadows for me and for you, I hope, in that model. And then we will play with the red color and violet. And both will work as a cold color and as a deeper shadow than the previous two. Okay? More or less, this is the idea when you want to start in that way. So remember that every color that you are watching are shadows for me. That's the key. And then remember the dilution. You have to paint with 4 or 5 layers, no more. Okay? Then the angle, as you can see on the video tutorial. So always at the beginning over everything on the top, and then below from the bottom, okay? To find perfectly the angle to paint everything. And remember that everything of that is an sketch. So if you understand that everything is an sketch, then you won't feel fears about the brush when you have to paint the next edge highlighting, layering, and everything that I'm going to propose you to represent the most gold NMM ever. I hope you have enjoyed watching that and surprise you with your results. So because I'm going to give you a lot of keys to paint gold NMM. Then, if you feel that at the beginning was really easy, now is something different. We want to represent a gold NMM plus a OSL and playing with different ambience, cold, warm. This is crazy. So what do you have to do at the beginning? First, to represent the OSL, we will follow the same process. We will use the airbrush to spray the highest color. In that case, I'm going to use a fluorescent color. This orange fluorescent color from AK Interactive. I'm going to use that color. Maybe for that color, because it's really powerful and really thin, you will have to spray maybe 6 or 8 layers, not just 4, sorry for that. But I think if you layer 1, then you dry with the airbrush or with your hair dryer. Remember that I can't tell you the brand of my hair dryer because it's something really as a secret. It's a teaser. So then paint a new one, then a new one, but between each layer you have to dry the previous one, because if you spray a new one over the new one before it's completely dried, it's like doing nothing. Okay, remember that tip. So then what I'm doing now with my brush, I'm adding ice yellow, pale yellow, whatever you want, plus white. So if you use orange plus white, perfect. If you use yellow plus white, perfect. If it's cold, warm, whatever you want. The idea is have something inside of white because you will cover better than if you use just pure white. Once time it's done, you painted the surge of the light from this lava effect, fire effect, this OSL. It's time to increase the tonality, increase the light with pure white in the same places where you painted the previous one, for sure. And then once time you have this completely uniform, flat with that color, it's time to use and spray around everything the orange. You will enjoy a lot with that model. I hope you will enjoy paint the edge highlighting too. So that's the key. Represent the main parts or the surge of light in every place where you want to have this powerful. Have you seen that color on your screen? This is incredible. So as you see with the first layer, it's like doing nothing. So you have to dry this layer and again paint a new one and again maybe paint a new one. So maybe you will have to add 6 or 8 or maybe 10 layers. It's depending of the dilution. And remember that color, it's really thin. I think all that kind of colors has a pigment really thin, so won't cover really well. So for that reason, I think if you use them with airbrush will be better because you can paint super thin layers once time is dried. So if you have to paint one with your brush and then keep time drying, maybe you will lose some details. But you can do it too if you want, okay? So as you see, I spray, I don't know how many, so maybe 5 or 6, and I'm going to spray again. But in that case, I would like to spray with something darker. In that case, darker means saturated color. So I'm going to give you the recipe about the OSL in that video tutorial. So first, we will use the most powerful color. Then the second most powerful color. In that case is orange plus red. And then we will use something with more red or just pure red. and we'll have 3 different tonalities on that base. Perfect to represent the OSL. Once time is done, it's time to use the hardest part, the airbrush to paint a black color. For sure, in that case, I'm going to tint that black color with a bit of red for the ambient, because I have to have a warm ambient around that. Then, to increase the shadows in some places, I'm going to use just pure white. If you don't want to use your airbrush without mask, remember that you have tape. You can cut the tape to cover perfectly the places where you don't want to paint, or you have masking putty, or different kind of tools or products that will help you to block the spray with your airbrush, okay? So you will paint only where you need. In my case, I don't like it, so I want to use it, just because I can see the whole effect together. For me, it's better see everything together and then try to fix it with my brush if I need it. For sure, I'm going to need it. Remember that everything about this red that you are watching, the orange and this like yellow or really high orange, like really highlighting on that orange, it's because we painted with white, so you can see perfectly the gradient. All these are my shadows. Yeah, it's true. The same as the gold armor. So then we will use the same colors or something higher, like a bit of white or white plus this orange, to increase a bit the OSL in some tiny places, really, really tiny, at the end of everything, if we need it, okay? And if you need to fix something because you painted where you don't want, or you have to increase the contrast, wherever you need, we will do at the end. So now with airbrush is something like that. Something easy, as you can see. So orange, then a mix between orange and red, and then just red to have that gradient. And then once time the OSL shirts, the places where we want to represent that kind of fire or lava color, it's time to use the opposite. So with the OSL, we have to understand this. So this is really important. So check it well. You have to paint super saturated colors and super lighter, and then with the opposite. Super desaturated colors and really, really dark. That means that if you play with, for example, in your mind, hey, if I play with orange, I have to play with a complementary color. I have to play with blue. If I use a dark blue, will be great. In my opinion, no. Why? Because you will play with both saturation in both sides. So you will play with a saturation in a dark color, and then you will play with the saturation on where you have the fire. So I don't like that idea. Could be okay, but it's not for my taste. I think if you play, for example, on the rocks, on that stones, with pure black or black plus a bit of a color, will be much better, because you will have double contrast between the saturation in a place and really, really highlighting, and in another place the desaturation and really, really dark. So that's the idea, and this is how the OSL effect works better. Then, if you don't want to tint or spray in places where you don't want, remember, you have masking putty or different products to block the view. But in my opinion, if you have the whole effect together to see them at the same time, you will decide where you have to increase the black tonality or increase the orange at the end. So for me, it's better try to fix it after all the airbrush than block the view and don't understand well the effect. So here you have the effect. So you have here everything is done with the airbrush in that model. So you have everything ready to start to paint with your brush. So I don't have nothing else to say. So this is the first video tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed watching this one. Remember, you will have fun painting that model. So see you next video tutorial. Thank you very much and see you. Bye bye.